Explain why it's usually not wise to eat edible wild plants or wildlife in a wilderness survival situation. Well, for one thing, you don't need to really, right? We can survive for about 3 minutes without air. Please don't test this at home, because what will happen is at some point your brain will start being damaged from want of oxygen, and then you'll die. You can survive for about 3 days without water. Again, please don't try this at home. In a desert environment, you might not make it to the end of day 3. And in some environments, you might be able to stretch it out to 4, but please don't. Your body uses water to regulate its temperature, to get rid of waste, and to digest food. All right? And it's a critical resource. You can survive about 3 weeks without food, and some of us Americans probably should give that a go. If you're eating, you're using more water. This is especially true of fats and proteins. Carbohydrates require less water to digest, but still. Every safety rule has a name, and it's the poor clod who's taken a dirt nap or got otherwise really messed up because of X. So don't do X because of Y. Y being the guy who got messed up. Your number one priority in a survival situation, or one of the highest ones, is to not get messed up. Don't gash open your arm. Don't break your leg. Don't get bit by an animal. Don't get food poisoning or some other form of food poisoning. The hospital is not just over there, right? If it was, it wouldn't be a wilderness survival situation. It would just be a training exercise or a camping trip, right? It's not worth the risk. Wilderness survival, most cases, you're looking at a day or two, or a night or two before you'll either be able to walk out or rescue will come. You can get by fine without food, and that's probably what you ought to do. I went to the supermarket and I did some foraging. These are dandelions, and the leaves of the dandelion plant are edible. Now, you shouldn't eat them in people's yards as a rule, because many people will use herbicides to try and knock them on the head. I try and dig mine up all by hand just to avoid using chemistry. But in the wild, the leaves are edible. You make a salad out of them. And the root, after you wash it, you can boil it or roast it, and it is also edible. Right? I was taking a course out in Washington State, and we kept munching on all the wild blueberries out there, and they're even better than the ones in the store. And there were folks actually out there with 5-gallon buckets scooping up blueberries to sell to stores and restaurants. Now, any berry that is multifaceted, like a raspberry or a blackberry, is edible, with one exception, and that one exception is white. So if you see a multifaceted berry and it's not white, if it's ripe, it's safe to eat. As a rule, 90% of all black and blueberries, in color that is, are safe to eat, and about half of all red berries are safe. All white berries are poisonous. Right? Not so relevant around here, but I got some pine nuts, and in parts of the country, that's another food that you could forage for. Now, not in season at the moment, unfortunately, so I can't show you today, is the prickly pear cactus. And you might dismiss that offhand as like, well, you don't never find those here in Connecticut. And my response to that is, this is a marvelous book I'm reading right now, and all about trap rock formations in Connecticut and Massachusetts. And there's the prickly pear cactus. Right. There are a number of very good books on finding things, wild plants that we can eat. And I recommend that you take a look at these. There was a time in my life, much to my regret, I wasn't active in scouting. I'd gone to college, I was doing other things. but some friends of mine had stayed active as scouters. And I asked them, so what's the difference, way scouting is now from when we were in together? And their response was, every single thing that you can get sued for, yeah, we don't do that anymore. I suspect at some point someone got sick or messed up eating some wild plants. And when I was taking the survival courses, and this was in the early aughts, the Air Force survival instructor said, we do stuff with the Boy Scouts, but they're always like, no edible plants, none, zero, nada. Okay. But here's something I would like to share with you as a thought. When I was in Scouts, we had 3 billion odd people on the planet. We now have over 7, we're pushing 8, and in our lifetimes we may very well get up to 11 billion. There's anticipation that the world's population will probably peak at 11 billion. The vast majority of people on this planet do not have a connection with the natural environment. Back when there was about 1 billion people on the planet, almost everyone did, because you were a subsistence farmer or a hunter-gatherer, or if you were on a sailing ship, it would have been a sailing ship, and you have been very connected to what are the winds doing, what are the currents doing, what's going on around me, because your life and your livelihood would depend upon this knowledge. Nowadays, if you are in the merchant marine, you've got satellites, you've got a much stronger ship, you've got options, as it were. And the need to be very, very strongly connected to the natural environment is much diminished. Most people now are living in cities or suburban environments where the natural environment is a town or city park. The more we can become connected to the natural environment, learning about edible plants or tree identification. You may never become a forester or a woodworker, but tree identification helps you get connected to the natural environment. Likewise, you may never go involved in hunting or wildlife photography and need to stalk animals, but learning to look for animal sign and identify animal tracks helps connect you to the natural environment. So I would encourage you to learn about edible plants. The Boy Scouts aren't going to do it for you, but there are books, and that knowledge, along with the other kinds of knowledge that you can gain, will help you connect with the natural environment. And I think each of us, individually and collectively, it would be really good if we did this, because our planet is facing challenges, or rather, our ability to live and thrive on this planet is being compromised by human activity. I know a lot of people insist global warming, not a thing. It is. And saying it isn't doesn't change what's really going on and the compelling evidence of this. So one of the things we need to do is really get dialed into what's really going on.